California's wildfire crisis continues to devastate the state there, with at least 27 deaths now. Thousands of homes and businesses have been reduced to ash, and more than 200,000 residents have been forced to evacuate. As firefighters battle the blazes across Los Angeles County, there's outrage that continues to mount over the state's preparedness and policy failures. Governor Gavin Newsom has declared a state of emergency, but critics argue that years of mismanagement, underfunded fire prevention efforts, and restrictions on environmental policies have left California vulnerable to these types of catastrophic events. As California grapples with mounting damages, which some are saying could exceed $150 billion, voters and lawmakers alike are demanding accountability. They're demanding immediate reforms. So, what needs to change to prevent disasters like this from becoming the new normal for California and for other states who follow these type of woke ideologies? Well, joining me now to discuss the latest is California Assemblyman Bill Essayli, who has spoken out about the need for meaningful policy changes there in California. Assemblyman, welcome to Washington Watch. Great to have you.
Thanks for having me.
All right, well, you've called on Governor Newsom to convene a legislative session to overhaul wildfire prevention policies. Tell us a little bit about that. What do you have in mind?
Well, the reason I called for it is because he convened a special session to quote unquote Trump-proof the state of California. He wants to hit the ground running on Inauguration Day and file multiple lawsuits, frivolous lawsuits against the Trump administration. So I said, rather than doing that, why don't we have a special session to fireproof the state of California? Let's focus on responding and mitigating future wildfires. So under public pressure, he has caved, and he has now called a special session on the wildfires. The Democrats intend to mostly focus on money and diverting millions, if not $1 billion or more, to respond to the current wildfire situation. Republicans will be pushing for policy changes in that special session.
Wow, so it sounds like from a political perspective, there's going to be some fireworks as well. So what kind of specific changes, let's put it that way, would you like to see introduced?
Yeah, there's some changes we need to make in the law, and then a lot of the changes, honestly, has to happen in the governor's branch. He's got a lot of control as the executive over the state. But from a legislative perspective, we got to get the regulations out of the way so that way the firefighters can prepare the state for these wildfires. Specifically, we have controlled burns that we need to do across the state. In the safe seasons, when it's safe to do so, we need to clear all this brush. And the most efficient way to clear it is, frankly, to burn it. But because of decades of environmental regulations, we don't do that anymore. The firefighters have to comply with CEQA, which is our environmental policies here. They have to do environmental impact studies. So we have to clear all this regulatory burden so we can clear the brush that we need to do. We have to let the lumber industry go back into the wildlands and remove the dead trees. We need to upgrade and underground our power infrastructure. A lot of these fires get ignited by failing electrical infrastructure. So there's several things we can do to clear up the regulatory burdens so we can make the state more fireproof, or at least fire resistant.
Well, I recall when I was in Congress, I served, among other places, a Natural Resources Committee. And what you were talking about right now specifically, we dealt with on the federal level several times, and obviously nothing was ever done about it. So let me ask you this. It's my understanding that California's wildfire prevention budget has drastically been reduced over recent years, from some close to $1 billion to somewhere in the ballpark of $200 million. Now, has all this underfunding, do you think, contributed to the current crisis?
Absolutely. I mean, the state, the size of California, to spend $200 million on wildfire prevention is kind of laughable. We're spending over $5 billion a year just to give illegal immigrants health care in the state of California. We're going to spend about $1 billion in the budget on this high-speed train to nowhere. So it just shows you where the priorities of the Democrat Party are. They're not interested in the basics of governing. They're not interested in public safety, transportation, mitigating disasters. They like to play politics. They like to get involved in really things that the public doesn't want them involved in. We don't want the state involved in immigration policy, but that's what drives these people. They're very unserious people, and they're wholly incompetent, as you could see that playing out on the national stage right now with both Gavin Newsom and Mayor Karen Bass.
We have all seen and heard, there have been many celebrities, it seems many, who have lost their homes during all of this. And of course, they've been very outspoken. But what seems to be going underneath the radar largely are dozens and dozens of middle class families, largely families of color. That have lost their homes. Is there any effort specifically to help these communities that probably are perhaps more vulnerable?
Well, they definitely are going to need a lot of help. But I think that's also upset some people in the state. We've had some really devastating fires in the past, just the last couple of years, and it didn't get the national attention that this fire got. So there is a little bit of that where now, because celebrities are involved, it's become a bigger issue. But regardless, there are real victims of all socioeconomic class. The federal government is ultimately going to have to step in and help them. I fully support that. And I fully support getting aid directly to the victims. But when it comes to reimbursing the state for its expenses, I think it's appropriate to attach some conditions to that, because otherwise this is just going to continue the way it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, we've only got about a minute or so left, but you lawmakers you've got a lot to deal with right now. Do you think that you will be able, as lawmakers, to rebuild the trust and demonstrate really some progress as it relates to wildfire prevention?
Well, when you say lawmakers, California is a supermajority Democrat state. So the Democrats have the governor's office, they've got supermajority in the legislature. So Republicans really were not part of the equation here. We'd obviously love to change that at some point. But right now, the Democrats own this. And so we're just making sure the public understands who's been in charge and who's responsible for these policy failures.
Thank you so much, California Assemblyman Bill Essayli. Wow, you've got your hands full. We deeply appreciate you taking your time to join us today on Washington Watch.
I appreciate you covering this. Thank you.